Trust me, he knows I put him on skates last time. And this time when I put you on skates, I'm going to leave you frozen like Elsa.
Hello and welcome back to Hold On I'm Talking Brother. My name is Joe Greenwood and you are listening to our UFC 281 preview. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira for the middleweight title from Madison Square Garden, the mecca of combat sports. And Tom, the UFC have made Madison Square Garden in November one of its pinnacle cards of the year. And let's just put it straight out there. Does this live up to the hype? Does this live up to that billing that the UFC have given it?
Well, they've put the right fighters on there. They've created the platform. Now, of course, we've seen before where those fights have not always lived up to expectations. The thing is, at Madison Square Garden, it normally goes down. All right, we've got Adesanya facing his boogeyman, Alex Pereira, in the number one slot. Lots of questions to be answered there. And then some real fan favourites in Poirier and Chandler later on down the card, amongst some packed prelims. I'm excited, Joe.
Excellent. Well, Tom, no foreplay. Let's get to it. We are about to go into this card. And me and Tom are going to make predictions for all of these fights. We're going to pick a fight for each fight who we think is going to win. And if we get that correct, we get 1 point. And we're going to pick the method. And if we get that correct, it's 2 points. Meaning 10 points are on offer for us today. I am the defending champion. I won last time. So let's get on with it and start with this main event of Adesanya versus Pereira for the middleweight title. This is the third time they've met. For the first time in MMA, though, first 2 times were in kickboxing, in which Pereira beat Adesanya twice. Now, having watched those 2 fights not that long ago, I can tell you that they are very contentious fights, Tom. And I'm going to straight up ask you here, do you think that we are going to be in for anything contentious with this fight? Or do you think that these two are somewhat of their equal?
Well, Joe, I think we do have to start, of course, with the history between the two of them. However, the key part is we must recognise it is a different sport. It's a different cage with different parameters. I mean, it's a cage instead
different
of a
size,
ring.
a small ring.
Yeah, different size. And yeah, of course, for kickboxers, that freedom they have to move, especially men with the kind of ring craft that we've seen Izzy display, making full use of the cage against some of his past opponents who couldn't get near him or tried to and got humbled in doing so. I think he's shown a real mastery for this, this setting. So with that in mind, I'm not sure how much importance to place on the prior fights, especially as you say, Joe, they were a little bit controversial. I mean, Izzy very much feels like he won the first fight. Seems like there are quite a few commentators out there who are with him. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like he won the fight. It was very close, but I think that he won the fight. But again,
what about the second fight though, Joe? What about the did he win that?
He was winning that until he got knocked out by Pereira with this huge left hook, which is obviously the main weapon of Pereira. What is interesting, though, is that in that fight, Adesanya was really putting it on Pereira, and he basically got a standing 8 count, Pereira, which kind of, it was a bit of an odd one, because it was just like, oh, is he finished him? Really? No, not quite. It was a bit of an odd one.
It was in Brazil, we should add there. Yes. Hometown hero.
Yeah.
Poatan. Yeah, Izzy wasn't happy with it because he felt that gave him the recovery time that perhaps he shouldn't be given. Yeah. I'm not that au fait with the rules in kickboxing. But they meet again in UFC. It seemed preordained.
Very much so.
Now, let's talk about Pereira's road to the title fight. Now, who's he beat, Joe? He's beat Andreas Michailidis
at MSG last year with a switch knee.
UFC 268, yeah, a flying knee. Now, that's not the whole story of that fight.
No.
First round, he was getting hugged. He was getting ground down against the cage. It wasn't looking that great.
No.
So, Hail Mary time. flying knee, and that's it. Okay, so fantastic for the highlight reel, but don't know how much you can rely on flying knees to get you out of trouble every fight.
No.
Then he fought Bruno Silva.
Yes.
A man with not much regard to him at that time. I thought that was a close fight until the third round, Joe.
Yeah, I agree. At which point, Pereira really put it on Silva. Also, I feel like that fight is a really good example of Pereira, the fighter, in that, you know, if you put your guard up, like your hands up to your head up there, Pereira, that is typically when he starts to unload. Like, he doesn't really get into like these exchanges where you're both sort of trying to fire at the same time and time each other off each other's strikes. He wants you hurt off of a single shot, covering up, and then he starts to unload. This is something that was from his kickboxing career as well. That is a very similar thing that he used to do there.
Yeah, let me jump in on that one, Joe. That's something I observed as well. Now, like you said, he's not so interested in trading. He's kind of willing to absorb shots himself as well. So what I'm saying is, in waiting for those moments where his opponent will have the high guard and then he can start to unload and really hurt them, to get them to that state, he's willing to absorb shots. Yeah. You know, when they're not hurt, he doesn't unleash.
Yeah. I think also it's probably just the case with the people that he's fought in the UFC so far is that their striking is just, in terms of power, is probably nothing that's too surprising for Pereira. And then case in point with that being Sean Strickland in the last fight, in which
a man who definitely did not hold a high guard and seek to block punches.
I sent you a picture earlier of the concussive left blow.
I think that's probably going to be the album cover for this episode, isn't it? I mean, what a comedy display.
Yeah, where it was bizarre where Strickland was doing like this hand fighting thing where he was trying to like grab at his hands and
he's reaching out with his right. He's reaching with his right so that he can land his own straight shot down the pipe. So he's trying to set up the left, and in doing so, he's exposing, by putting his right hand away from his face. Yeah. He's exposing himself to the biggest weapon of Alex Pereira.
I know, and Pereira set up so well with that sort of left body jab, just feinting and twitching, and Strickland bit on every single feint and every single shot, and then he just uncorked that massive left hook, goes down, and then he lands 2 right hands as he falls.
Oh my way!
It was a brutal finish from Pereira, and he earns a title shot. Does he deserve a title shot? If you compare it to what Adesanya went through and his run when he got to the UFC, no.
Well, quite clearly, without the history between them, we wouldn't be. No. Well, would Pereira be ranked? I don't think so.
He wouldn't be ranked that highly.
I don't think he'd be in the rankings, Joe.
Well, if I have to beat Strickland,
I don't think so.
I think after Strickland's ranked though, isn't he?
Would he get the Strickland fight?
Oh, that's a good point. Actually, no, probably not. Yeah, I mean,
he would have been wrestled to death by
Brunson,
some unknown, on the early prelims, and then packed off back to glory.
Do you think he would have beaten Brad Tavares?
No. Oh. Well, wait. That was too resounding. It's more like, it was. Yeah. I mean, there are other fighters at middleweight that, you know, aren't favourable matchups for him. You know, guys like Andre Muniz.
Yeah.
Yeah, or someone like, I mean, even Jack Hermansson.
Oh, I don't know about Hermansson. I'm not sure if I totally buy into that. But look, that's not the fight we're getting. Instead, we're getting two kickboxers going at it.
Now, what? Yeah, sorry, Joe. I just want to round off what I'm trying to get at here in talking about Pereira's route to the title fight. All right. Now, Sean Strickland, Jack Slack. I was just listening to him now, and he was pointing out that it's kind of the perfect dream matchup for Pereira, in that, well, as I say, he likes to reach away with his right hand, to use that to find range. Yeah. He brings it away, he brings his guard down, and it's the worst possible thing that you can do against a specific weapon that Alex Pereira has. So you can see, you know, when you kind of go through those fights he's had, it's not that convincing. We've all got on board with it. All right, it made sense. We were all creaming for this fight, but it's not a true test.
Let's also bring up the Strickland fight as well. Is that the whole time Strickland was just walking forward and constantly, as you say, reaching out with that right hand. So he's basically setting the range for Pereira as well, where it's just like, right, he's going to be here. All right, I'll stop. Okay, I'll throw that left body jab. All right, whatever. I'll just keep finding my time in, take my time. He allowed Pereira the time basically to line up a perfect shot and land it. I don't know what Strickland thought. What, he was going to throw it and just eat it? That's a horrendous idea. Like,
Joe, what's making me cringe here? I picked Sean Strickland for that fight.
I mean, that was a ludicrous pick, I must say.
Well, I didn't expect that kind of display. I expected him to use MMA.
Tempo, takedowns, leg kicks, maybe
converting that forward pressure.
Stance. Yeah.
Converting the forward pressure, which obviously was an uncomfortable position to be in. Against any kind of kickboxer, forward pressure is going to be at the elite level.
Yeah.
It's going to be dangerous.
But they were just walking in circles around the ring, basically turning clockwise the whole time. Yeah, and at that point where Pereira just sets his feet, you can just
follow him.
He was just following into that left hand. It was a terrible, terrible performance from him. And as you say, what can you really take from it? If you look at it, Pereira as a kickboxer as well, he as a fighter, just in his physicality, he's different. Kickboxing, Pereira had his hands quite high up to his head, whereas in the UFC, he's demonstrated so far, he keeps his kind of like waist height, doesn't he? He's almost like a
I think that's disrespect. That's dismissive of the opponents he's had so far.
So you don't think he's going to do that against Adesanya?
No, I don't think he's going to do that against Adesanya.
It would be.
I think it's a huge fight for Adesanya, but I also think it's a really big fight for Pereira, and he respects him, and he knows it's not Sean Strickland.
Do you think he's going to maybe throw something that we haven't seen so far? Like, to be honest, he hasn't thrown that many kicks in terms of the UFC, like low kicks or even high kicks from there. I'm wondering if he's going to start maybe integrating that into the game. I mean, even as a kickboxer, he wasn't a huge kicker. He was more used for the hands, and the kicks were used more to keep range. But again, that ring is so different to the cage and the space that you can work within. Now, listen. We've been talking about the contender. Yeah. Let's get on to the champ. I mean, Adesanya at middleweight has been near enough flawless in the UFC.
Well, if by flawless you mean that he's not been hit and he's managed to outpoint his opponents and they haven't been able to break through his game.
I'm sensing dissent here, Tom.
Well, Joe, I think I have to represent the views of most fans here, and I think you agree with me too. Now, the last memorable performance from Adesanya, it's 2 years ago now, Paulo Costa, UFC 253 in Abu Dhabi. Since then, he went up, he flirted with light heavyweight, and just met a bigger man.
Yeah.
I think that kind of ruled that path out for him without going further into that. Blachowicz obviously fought a smart fight too.
Yeah, of course.
There were some details to the striking which are worth considering. But let's put that to one side. It was a different weight class. Since then, it's been Marvin Vettori, Robert Whittaker, and Jared Cannonier. Have the fans got what they want? Have they got what he promised from those fights?
No, he hasn't. I think part of that is, as we've said before on this podcast, is the fear of getting knocked out and then humped post-fight, as Costa was. I think also now for Adesanya is that, there's so much footage of him. Like, he has quite a few championship fights that go the distance. There's a lot of footage on him. And I think there's a lot of fighters now that have realised how to prevent Adesanya from knocking them out.
And how is that? Joe?
It's basically to not allow him to build up his attacks. It's the first wave of attack, he lands it, whether it's a jab, low kick, maybe a 1-2. I mean, Adesanya doesn't really throw many combinations anyway, but he'll start figuring out the range as that low calf kick tends to be like the main weapon early on. And basically is that when you get hit, it's to basically disengage. Now, a lot of fighters, they want to I'm going to get it back, I'm going to chase it back, which is what you can't do with Adesanya. And what some fighters have seen now is with what Blachowicz did, which was when Adesanya feints, Blachowicz bit on every single feint, but he bit in the same way off every feint. So he wasn't giving Adesanya new information. He was just giving him the same information over and over and over again, and then in turn reacted off it in a different way each time, whether it was like a lead right hook or whether it was a low calf kick in response. He wasn't giving him new information, and then in turn pulled Adesanya into him so that he could then take him down. Obviously, the greater weight that he had on him meant that he was able to do that and then control him on the ground from there.
In the later rounds.
Rounds 4 and 5.
Which was key.
Yes, absolutely. The problem is with these middleweights is that the only place where they've managed to even get close to a takedown is up against the fence, which is where where they try to get him down, and he's so good against the fence. He's so good at defending takedowns and neutralizing that space that it's really not worth it in a way.
Well, obviously, Vettori had a very hard time trying to lean on him against the cage.
Adesanya reaching over and patting him on the arse as he did it, just like really dismissing him.
Yeah. Now, clearly, this is not something we expect a lot from Pereira in this fight. We don't expect any. Oh, Joe, are you going to jump in there?
Do you expect this from Adesanya? Do you think he'll take Pereira down?
People are making a lot of this, and I think we've seen from Izzy, like in his fight against Gastelum, for example, he is willing to mix in some takedowns where necessary, when he needs a bit of a break on the feet. And I think if he gets hurt, if he gets clipped, or if he's not having the success that he wants, I think he'll be ready to do that. I think he would prefer to make a statement to wipe the loss off on kickboxing terms, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think he would rather... I think that's his preference, but of course he's a mixed martial artist now. This is his division. Of course he will go to a wrestling game if he needs to.
Yeah, and also is his jiu-jitsu in an offensive sense. He's very mobile in what he switches to. Like the Gastelum one is what people pick up on, which was that triangle, which he then turned into almost into an arm crank as well. It was, he's very fluid in those moments. If he's not just I'm going to ride out a round and I'll just hold a defensive position. I don't know if Pereira will go to that. I know he's been training with Teixeira in his gym. I would be immensely surprised if he attempts a takedown. I wonder also more if maybe it's going to be the clinch game. The clinch game will be very different, obviously, compared to kickboxing, where it gets broken up a lot more. Here, unlikely to do that. I wonder if Adesanya might engage in those clinches to maybe sort of drain Pereira, get the sort of that lactic acid building up within his arms. It's an interesting one in the hypothetical terms. I do agree with you, though. I think it's going to be mostly, in fact, I'm going to say completely a kickboxing affair. And
unless Pereira has success.
What, in like a takedown?
Undue success. Yeah, no, sorry, Joe. No, I'm saying that...
Oh, in a kickboxing, yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. I see any occasion in which Izzy is hurt and he needs, let's say the pressure is continuous, and let's say that Pereira's marching forward into that position that you described for us earlier on, where he's got Adesanya hurt, Adesanya's trying to cover up, and Pereira is starting to go to work. Later on, he's starting to work for the body, he's going up top, and Adesanya can't get a break. We're going to see a takedown.
Yeah, for
We're
sure.
going to see grappling. And Adesanya, I'd expect to be able to utilise that in a way which will keep him safe.
Yeah.
Now, what I see, Joe, is I see Pereira, he's going to go forward and he's going to fight the fight that we've wanted to see. We want to see Adesanya picking people apart, right?
Yeah.
We want to see them go to war. We want to see somebody go into that distance, into that space against Adesanya. I think we're going to get it. I don't want to jinx it right now. But shall I lay it out for you, Joe?
Go for it.
Champ.
No,
show you that
be
respect.
my guest.
But I don't expect Pereira to be able to match those 2 wins that he's had. I think Adesanya will win with a very complete performance, on points, in a decision victory.
So about a month ago, I was thinking about this card, just sort of looking ahead, getting the sort of feel of it. I was trying to get the sort of what is the narrative of the fight in terms of in the cage, I should say. And it just immediately came to me, and I've just not been able to get it in my head at all, is that I'm so utterly convinced that Adesanya is going to win this by decision. that it just all other possibilities just wouldn't come into my mind. I don't think Pereira. I actually don't think he's mobile enough to cut Adesanya off. And in those kickboxing matches as well, Adesanya really hounded Pereira, really hounded him and invited him into the fire. And whenever Pereira threw, Adesanya was there, like blocking and moving through. And he has, the interesting thing is the height element of this. Like, it's going to be the first middleweight in a while where it's the same height as Adesanya, so he can't really.
He's a huge man as well, Pereira.
He's a very big man.
Huge man.
It's a lot
not
to carry.
Not just in height, but in weight.
It's a lot to carry, though. So, and also, I've watched Pereira.
Can I get a finish, Joe? Like late rounds?
Maybe. But I've gone for Adesanya by decision, and part of it is Adesanya. His pedigree as a champion, but also I've watched Pereira. I've watched him in kickboxing. I watched him in Glory. I watched his last 2 fights against Artem Vakitov. The first one in which he won the light heavyweight title, in a very controversial decision win. It was a fantastic fight, though. You go out your way to watch that. And then in the rematch that happened, that he lost, Vakitov lost the first 2 rounds, and he had to win the next 3, and he did. And in the 5th round, Pereira just punted. He punted the fight. He's just like, oh, whatever. Like, he's not that bothered. And on the commentary, they even reference, Pereira, this is his last ever kickboxing match. He's going off fully into MMA after this, after signing with the UFC. And it just reminded me that I've seen him do this before. Like, some of his most significant losses, there's been the odd occasion where he's been caught and rocked and finished on the feet. But the decision losses that I've seen, he's punted the fight. The last 2 rounds, like, whatever, I'll just get through this and that's the end of it. I can very much see that happening. If past his prologue, then that is the potential setup I see for Pereira. Hence, Adesanya by decision for me, Tom.
All right, so we agree on that one, Joe.
You do indeed.
I hope it doesn't play out the way you described it there, though. I want some fireworks.
Oh, for sure. I think there will be,
now,
particularly in the early rounds.
Joe, the next fight, it's the co-main. It's Joe's women's strawweight. Is it strawweight even? Is it flyweight?
Strawweight? What are you doing?
It's Joe's women's strawweight corner.
Yes.
All right. Fireworks, yes or no?
Fireworks in terms of, I think Carla Esparza is immensely disrespected as the champ, going in as an underdog. And sorry, but I'm going to have to double down on that disrespect here, because she's facing Zhang Weili, Carla Esparza. She won the title of Rose Namajunas in maybe the worst fight we've ever seen. And Zhang Weili is one of 3 good women's MMA fighters in the world. The other 2 being
along with Rose
and Valentina Shevchenko. The 4th one, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, officially retired today. So
I mean, Joe, Amanda Lemos, yeah. She knocked out your girl.
I was moderately disappointed at what Rodriguez was doing on the ground in that fight. That was not impressive, I must say. Anyway, I mean, am I being disrespectful here by saying, like, what is there other to say that Zhang Weili's going to win this fight by knockout? Like, she's going to... I think she might just run through Esparza. I just think the golfing quality is too great. I mean, I think Weili's hooks, they're so strong and powerful. And offensive wrestling and defensive wrestling is much improved. Well,
Joe, let me just get to that. I mean, it is the defensive wrestling which I think is going to be key.
Yeah.
Now, look, Rose Namajunas won her fight against Weili with takedowns.
Yeah, the second fight.
That was key. Rose Namajunas.
But Rose is...
Now, Carla Esparza, she's a specialist. That's what she does.
Yes, but how does she get into those takedowns? Like, you have to go through that. You either have to get into a clinch position and then work into a takedown from there, or you have to fire in a single leg or a double leg, try and get into it from there.
Well, she did try that 11 times out in her fight against Rose. She shot 11 takedowns.
How many did she get?
She got 2.
How much control?
2. Well, let's not kill off our listener base talking about that fight.
Don't worry,
much.
lads. That erection will be coming back when we're talking about Poirier versus Chandler. But
I'm saying that's the question there, isn't it? It is about the takedown defense for Weili. We don't need to explain why she's better on the feet.
Yeah.
Anybody who just watches the Embedded and watch the two ladies' hidden pads.
Yeah, there's a different sound when Weili throws. Like it's
a crunching, cracking sound.
Yeah.
And for Carla, it's more of a
pitter patter.
Gentle breeze lapping against the shore.
Yeah, it's. I mean, listen. Do you see a way in which, like, Esparza wins any of the opening rounds? Like, it's gonna. I feel like it's gonna have to be almost like a freak takedown, honestly, too.
A freak takedown from a woman whose game is all about grappling and takedowns.
And she had terrible takedown offense against Rose in that last fight. Like, and I think Rose is clearly of a similar quality to Zhang.
Isn't Rose a bit more mobile?
Or than Zhang?
A bit lighter on her feet than Zhang? Lighter on her feet? More mobile? Better ring craft?
Maybe. But Zhang has... Oh, I don't know, though. I think also the thing is that Zhang's so forward moving is that she's going to have a lot of space behind her to defend as well. I don't think she'll get caught up against the cage unless it's from a clinch position where she's pressed forward and then maybe Carla can turn around from there. I've already put my prediction out there. I think Weili's going to finish her.
You think she's going to blow her away, Joe?
I do think she's going to blow away.
Yeah,
I do think she's going to blow away.
I've gone for Weili by TKO.
Yeah. Like, what are we doing here, right? There's nothing more to say.
What are we doing? Let's talk about Poirier versus your man Chandler. Let's talk about it.
Oh, my God. Well, I mean...
Now, listen, what I've heard from fellow fans, of course, big fans of the pod, this is what they want to hear about. They're talking about Poirier fighting Michael Chandler. Poirier, the fan favourite, versus the hype man, Mr. Michael. See you at the top, Chandler.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the best fight on the card? Are you most excited about this?
Oh... From this standpoint, it is probably the best fight in terms of like how equal they are, because there's this still unknown thing about Adesanya Pereira, but there's an
even though they fought twice,
not in MMA. The thing with this Poirier Chandler one is that these two guys represent the old guard of the lightweight division now, and these guys have really. They've emptied the jug, like they've put it all out there, and I just want to know: is it going to be the case that one of these guys is just more shop worn than the other? Like, and I worry for both of them, in a sense.
No, but we're talking about the spectacle, aren't we? We're talking about the hype. We're not talking about who should fight Makhachev next.
Yes,
we're not. Hopefully, that's not what we're talking about.
I think that's what's going to be spoken about. That is going to be spoken about. I honestly think...
let's not be silly.
Yeah.
Let's
wait, hold on. But what's silly about it? Let's say one blows the other one away inside a round and then cuts a promo afterwards saying, Makhachev, I want you next. They're getting the shot.
To me, it would be criminal if Michael Chandler gets a shot at Makhachev.
You telling me Michael Chandler's not working on that promo already? That promo is locked and loaded.
Well, and this is what it is, Joe. This is like they're both great draws. I like listening to both guys. I like this, paid in full, salon quality Poirier.
Yeah,
and
they're great fighters to watch.
They absolutely are. Now, look, to underline this, Michael Chandler, he is everything you want in a big signing for the big leagues. I mean, he's had 4 fights in the UFC. You can remember all of them, Joe.
I mean, they're all immensely exciting. Kill or be killed style fights. I mean, in which Chandler...
highlight knockouts.
Chandler lands at 5.17 per minute and he absorbs at 4.87 per minute.
High octane. Now,
Action.
I mean, I think the best example of that was not the last fight, but the one against Justin Gaethje.
Yeah.
That was prime Michael Chandler. What a fight that was.
That was ludicrous, that fight, wasn't it? It was. I think the only thing that makes that fight disappointing was that third round was just not as competitive as the previous 2, and like
because Gaethje was styling on him.
Yeah, Gaethje started to pull away on Chandler. I I mean, when we think about their specific skills, Chandler doesn't have like a lot of tools. Like, I love Chandler. I love watching him fight. But he doesn't...
Right, it's explosive, athletic takedowns and strikes.
Yeah.
You know? It's
big,
one-off bursts.
Big shots. Shots. I'm going to explode for like 30 seconds. All right, I'll take a step back. Let me reset. All right, off I go again. You know, he just launches himself into it. And we know Poirier's tricks, his bag of tricks. You know,
feel the shorts.
Feel the short. Yeah, the pull the short up move. Jab, straight, step through, straight with the other hand.
Which is a nice combo.
Beautiful combo. He gets everyone with it. He literally gets I'm going to ask you this question. At what point in the fight is he going to catch Chandler with that? Is he going to get it in like the first, second, or third round?
Oh, in the first round.
Well, like 2 minutes, 14 seconds in?
3 explosions from Chandler in.
After the third explosion, Poirier lands that combo.
Yeah.
The guillotine, jumping guillotine that he always goes for. You know, kind of like rudimentary low calf kicks. Nice hook, nice lead hook.
It's the hooks. It's the hooks.
Yeah.
It's the hooks. For me, that's what stands out about Poirier, especially since he moved up to lightweight and became salon quality Dustin Poirier.
Yeah.
It was. He beefed up, and those hooks became pretty vicious. They started to hurt.
And he's again one of those fighters that when he gets that finishing touch, it's like an avalanche. You know, it's a real like it's going downhill for you quickly.
Gaethje, Alvarez, McGregor,
yeah. Here's another thing now with hindsight. Do you think Poirier missed a trick by going for that second McGregor fight and not for the title? That maybe that was his opportunity and instead he went for the money.
Who would the matchup have been?
Chandler or Oliveira? Probably Chandler.
Yeah, that's insane to think that this same fight now could have been a title fight.
Yeah, it would have been. It would have been the title fight.
Like, yeah, of course, Oliveira did not have the profile.
No, Oliveira had the win over Ferguson.
Yeah,
and then that was
which meant something then.
Yeah,
but he didn't have. You're right. It probably would have been Chandler Poirier.
Yeah.
But for him, he was looking at it thinking, all right, Chandler or, you know, like who's going to be there? He was the waiting to be throwned. He was waiting to be crowned.
I mean,
that's at that moment.
I mean,
take
I bought
the money,
into
take
that.
McGregor while it's there. Well, you certainly did. You called Poirier to beat Oliveira. I mean, yeah. Interesting looking back at that one.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he wasn't that far away from finishing him in the first, Poirier, but that's the case with every Charles fight, really.
It's just 11 months ago. It's amazing how much the picture has changed at lightweight.
I know. I love it.
Really amazing.
It's great. This is what the division should be like. I mean, I look back on those dark days when you had Conor as champion and then you had Khabib as champion where he was fighting once a year. Like, you need turnover in these divisions. You need people fighting consistently. But yeah, it's quite something, isn't it? I mean, we're kind of almost talking around this fight. You know, the narrative almost seems more enticing than the actual fight itself because it's so tantalizing of just like, because they both just go forward and they're both like finishers. They both like will just it can just be such an avalanche on the other guy. Like Chandler was close to finishing Oliveira in that fight. You know, he was really putting it on him. But Chandler just when he gets hit, he goes like flying across the cage, doesn't he? Like, you know, when Oliveira caught him, he went flying. Ferguson sat him down. You know, he doesn't. Gaethje put him down. Chances are Poirier will as well.
Yeah, I suspect so. I mean, it seems quite clear that both fighters are going to have to take some punishment. You know, it's going to be a war. It seems inevitable.
What's the image that's popping out for me when sort of like describing this fight is like you got two kids by a swimming pool at the deep end. They're both trying to push the other one in. Because, like, in that water, it's just like, oh, here's Arman Sarukian, you know, here's Damir Ismagulov for you. It's just like
Lord.
the other one does not want to go in there. It's it's quite
this is the
something.
thing that if I was going to put a down on it, Joe, this is the thing when when you mention things like titles and the title picture. There's no way in hell Poirier or Chandler are ever going to fight Ismagulov. That's not going to happen.
No.
That's just not going to happen. And the loser of this fight, for me, they enter the prize fighter class.
Jorge Masvidal,
That's
Max Holloway, Conor
Max
McGregor.
Holloway. Oh my god,
Bro, Max Holloway.
oh my god.
That
Is
beating he
outrageous.
took.
What you've just said.
Volkanovski beat
outrageous.
him. He battered him into select two fights.
I'm sorry. No, I'm outraged. So I need to take a moment here.
Wait, hold on.
Holloway is not in for me. Holloway smashes almost anybody else at featherweight, and he has done.
Yeah,
he is not. He is not.
He needs to get out of the way
from the rankings.
He needs to get out of the way.
But he needs Volkanovski to fuck up to lightweight. He needs Volkanovski to beat Makhachev. He's like Volkanovski's number one fan right now.
Right, fair enough.
Come on. If take Volkanovski out of that division, then Max is totally legitimate in the top 5. He is not.
Bro, Arnold Allen runs through him.
Do not put... What? Do not put Max Holloway in the conversation with Jorge Masvidal. That is an outrage.
You're telling me Holloway...
This is
Masvidal
not official.
Booked. You're not into that?
Joe is speaking for himself here. This is not Hold I'm Talking Brothers' official position on Max Holloway.
That's my position on Max Holloway, and I stand by it. Look, enough of this. I'm putting it down.
Poirier by decision.
Yes, yeah. Poirier by decision
fuck off.
as well. Yeah, seriously, that is also
right.
my foot.
Right.
Yes.
Poirier decision. Yeah.
Right.
It makes sense.
Now,
right. Yeah.
Frankie Edgar has his retirement fight. How many fights too late is this? 2, 3? Against Chris Gutierrez, an unranked bantamweight. Now, it's not like...
Not that that's a slight.
No, this is definitely not a slight. An unranked bantamweight. That's that's still a diamond.
Legit killer. Yeah, exactly. You're a bantamweight and you're fighting in the UFC. You're a man to be feared.
Yeah, exactly. He's facing Chris Gutierrez. Now, we'll get to Edgar in a moment, but let's talk about Chris Gutierrez here. We need to put a bit of shine on him here. This is a man who has 2 TKO victories in the UFC from leg kicks. His low leg kicks honestly might be the most ferocious in the UFC. Like, they are crippling shots. And, Frankie with his sort of bobbing in and out movements, I can see him getting demobilized quite quickly here against Gutierrez.
You said something there that's caught me off guard. Do you think Frankie will be bobbing? Can he bob anymore, Joe?
I live in hope, Tom. I live in hope. It's honestly that would there have been a good fight for him to go out on? What, Dominic Cruz would have been potentially one where they both could have retired at the same time. Really, that's what we're kind of hoping for, wasn't it? And instead, they've given him Chris Gutierrez, who, I mean, man, that is just not a nice name to go out on. It's a rough one for him. Frankie now, he's 41, 42 years old, and he's still a ranked bantamweight, and he's basically a sitting target for someone to make their name off of. And I feel like this is what Gutierrez has basically signed up for. What was the moment for you where it was like Edgar was like long done? Because if I remember correctly, Tom, you picked him to beat Marlon Vera.
Is that fact?
That is a fact.
Oh Lord!
You picked him to beat Marlon Vera last year.
Yeah, I guess that's when I finally accepted it. I tell you what, Joe. Back in 2017, there was a young prospect. His name was Yair Rodriguez. He was flashy. He was hot shit, and he met a very old man in the octagon at featherweight at 145, who took him to school. He ground him into the mat and put an absolute whooping on Yair to the point where I thought that, we wouldn't see Yair again. Yeah. And that has just stuck with me, that beating. That man was Frankie Edgar. He was old then. It was 5 years ago. But the wrestling fundamentals were so strong. Yeah. So strong and on display against a pretty elite, flashy striker. And
who, by the way, is still a title contender in that division now.
He's worked his way back to that, Joe, but that was a beating. Anybody who needs to release some contents from their stomach because maybe they're feeling unwell, just Google Yair Rodriguez, Frankie Edgar. It was a whooping. And I believed in those fundamentals against flashy strikers without a fully rounded game up until Marlon Vera. So relatively recently, Frankie was already 40 at that time last year when he lost that fight. Now I give him no chance at all. The question is, how does Gutierrez win the fight?
I've gone for Gutierrez knockout. That Sandhagen knockout was the one that scared me the most, where Sandhagen hit that jump knee and
crazy walk-off flying knee.
Just he froze and just fell like a statue. It was awful finish. I do worry for him in this. It's a long overdue retirement, in my opinion. You know, he found a new lease of life at bantamweight, but bloody hell, the UFC really didn't give him a nice way out, did he? Like, after that Sandhagen loss, he should not have faced Marlon Vera, like, realistically speaking. And actually, probably should not have been ranked as well. I think that's probably one of the small benefits maybe we're going to see from this fight, is that Frankie leaves the rankings and it opens up a spot for some other absolute unknown beast to come in and basically start to make a name for themselves. So yeah, I've gone for Gutierrez by knockouts. Tom, what about you?
I picked Gutierrez by decision.
Yeah.
Mainly, Joe, because I can't see another knockout like that. I just can't see another. I think he will go to wrestling. He won't allow that distance. He won't allow any separation. I just don't want to see it, Joe. I don't want to see it. My heart has led for Frankie, and that means I think he will lose by decision rather than knockout. Right.
Speaking of,
that's a downer.
All right. How are you going to spin this? Dan Hooker versus is it Claudio Puelles? Claudio Puelles. It is Puelles, isn't it?
Joe's Spanish corner is this we're on to now?
Well, your Spanish is much more proficient than mine. Like, come on.
Yeah, well, often when you have the double L, it'll be Puelles.
Puelles.
Okay.
Right, here we go.
But I don't know for this fella.
Claudio Puelles.
Coming out of Peru. Yeah, coming out of Peru, Joe.
My old neck of the woods.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have the inside track onto MMA in Peru?
I do not.
Were people whispering the name?
No. All I remember was that Valentina Shevchenko used to be billed from Peru. I don't know if you remember those days in the UFC. Right, we'll get to Puelles in a moment. Dan Hooker, he's taken some beatings recently. Some quite scary ones, I will say. And at the age of 31, some worrying ones. I think this is kind of like the
he's
theme.
Only 31.
Yeah.
Hold on. Holy shit.
I think he's only 31 years old. He's been in the UFC for a long time. He fought Yair Rodriguez at featherweight. I remember that fight because Yair hit him with a Rabona kick, which was quite. Sorry, 32 years old. 32. Yeah, he's gone through the meat grinder, particularly recently. I mean, he's had the win over Nasrat Haqparast, but he's also had 4 losses in there, including one to Dustin Poirier, in which that was just barbaric fight between the two of them. Michael Chandler.
But hold on, just let me jump on that Poirier fight. It was a whooping in the end, but holy shit, he had Poirier rocking in moments in that fight.
That second round, at the end of the second round, when they're just trading in the corner with each other, just landing huge shots that would have knocked out anyone else. Then he had the loss to Michael Chandler in his debut in the UFC, lost to Makhachev by Kimura.
That was a knockout.
Yeah.
Beautiful win for Chandler.
And then the loss to Arnold Allen at the move down to featherweight, in which Allen just ran through him. Also missing, by the way, on there is the fight before the Poirier one, in which he won a split decision over Paul Felder down in New Zealand, a fight in which I had Felder winning. But again, just absolutely emptied the chug. And they just went to war with each other. Hooker doesn't make these things easy for himself. However, I'm going to bring this up here. Claudio Puelles Again, sorry for my pronunciation.
I'm not officially, by the way, signing off on that one.
Poyers.
Yeah, I'm not. No, but I'm not sure. We'll have to get the man on the pod to tell us.
Yes, his main route to victory is through his grappling. He has 3 knee bar victories in the UFC, which is kind of mad. The issue with that being the caliber of those fighters, with the last one being Clay Guida.
Ouch, there's some shade.
Yeah, well, come on, man. He's 800 years old and he's still fighting in the UFC. Like, come on, let's get him out of here already. So Poirier wants to go to sort of the grappling. That's where he wants to go immediately. In the sort of Chris Grutzemacher fight, in which again he got a knee bar in the 3rd round after reversing a position after being taken down. Poirier's kind of outworked him for the first 2 rounds and then sort of gassed in the 3rd, but mainly Grutzemacher knew he was down. Poirier's takedowns were not very good in those rounds. He got his only 1 takedown in the 1st round, went 0 for 8 in the 2nd, and 0 for 3 in the 3rd. So that tends to be the realm that he wants to go to against most fighters. And Hooker, coming from the City kickboxing gym, along with Adesanya and a few other fighters on this card, has good takedown defense up against the cage. That is going to be where the battle of this fight is. Because if it's out in open territory on the feet, Hooker will have the advantage. And against Haqparast, as we saw, he demonstrated actually very good takedowns, I thought. But Poirier, if he goes to take Poirier down, I would be surprised by that, for one. Because, again, Poirier, I think, has the advantage there. I just don't know. I just don't know with Hooker is does he have it left in him?
Well,
you know,
I watched Alex Volkanovski's predictions for this fight, Joe.
Oh, did you?
I watched Alex Volkanovski, also from City Kickboxing, previewing all the guys, all the fights on this card, including 4 fights from City Kickboxing. I'm going to let you in on a spoiler, Joe. He thinks they're all going to win.
Wow.
Yes, and he thinks they've all got extra fire in their belly. But what he said about Hooker is that when they've been sparring, and he used him as a sparring partner for some of his recent matchups, he said that he's not going anywhere. He's still got the fire. He was on point. He's sharp. He's had some time away, and he's still a killer. Now, look, you mentioned there the trials and tribulations Hooker's had of late, but you also recognise the calibre of opponents he's fought. Then you also mentioned Nasrat Haqparast. That was his last win. That was in the middle of his last 5 fights. Who was a lower tiered opponent who he put a working on. Let's be honest. That was quite a comfortable win for Hooker. And
he looked very smooth. He looked very smooth in that fight.
He's very good.
Yeah,
he's very good. Now, we've gone through a few phases of Hooker where it's like, who's this nobody? He's a bit of a gawky looking fella. And he started putting a few wins together. Then he knocked out Gilbert Burns. Yeah. And we're like, oh, wow, this guy's really good, actually.
Yeah.
James Vick, when that name meant something, when he had that run in the UFC, knocked him out too. And suddenly it was like, oh my God, this guy really is a top 5 fighter.
And then I know what you're about to bring up.
Well, I mean, the Barbosa loss.
That was brutal.
That was a brutal beatdown.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to be on the end of that sort of fight here with Poirier either. Like,
I definitely don't. My point is, Hooker is definitely top 15, 10 to 15 material at a minimum, still, for me.
Really?
Yeah.
You've been kind of harsh on him recently, I've got to say, so I'm surprised by this turn.
Yeah, it's just like it's very hard when you watch a man get broken so many times and take such punishment.
Context is key with some of these fights, though, isn't it? Like, it's just like, okay, he lost to Poirier, former interim champ, challenged for the title. Chandler challenged for the title. Makhachev, who's the current champ. And then, what was his last fight? Again, Arnold Allen, who is potentially going to be a title contender.
Right, you just told us You've told us Arnold Allen beats Volkanovski and Holloway. No question.
Stand by it. No question about it.
Right. I'm just going to highlight that on every occasion so the listeners know.
I will say,
Joe, Hooker, he's coming back. He's winning by TKO.
Wow. Now, you cited Volkanovski. a teammate of Hooker at the same gym. I'm going to cite Henry Hooft here for you for just a moment, who is
Puelles' coach.
Puelles' coach, yes, who is adamant, and many people from his gym are adamant that this gentleman will be a top 5 lightweight in the near future. Now, I'm not really one for buying into these things for the most part, but I will say, having rewatched that Grutzemacher fight, I'm going to be honest with you. He could have finished him before. Probably should have done. But he was never really in any danger in that fight whatsoever. Completely controlled him, out-grappled him. And the fear of what has happened to Dan Hooker scares me. You know, I maybe am a bit quick at times to write off guys after beatings, and I sometimes feel bad about it. And I feel bad about it now. I've gone for Puelles by decision. I think it's going to be a grindy, wrestly performance, and I think he's going to get the job done.
Right. Well, we will find out who the champion of the Hold On I'm Talking About the belt is early then on this card. Will be decided by the winner of that fight, Joe.
Pretty much, sir. Pretty much. Now, Tom, we're going to get back to that main card in a little bit, but let's look at these prelims. Banger Central. My word, Tom, give me the one that's really got your juices flowing.
I can only choose one.
Oh, give me one. Just one.
How are you going to do that to me, Joe?
Done you dirty.
I like so many. I'm going to surprise you with this.
Yeah.
I'm interested in seeing Dominic Reyes fight again.
Same. Really am interested in that. He's taken the time off after that Prochazka loss. Think of this as well, just as we mentioned with Hooker. Reyes lost to Jones in a fight that I thought he won. He lost to Blachowicz, former champ, and he's lost to Prochazka, the current champ. He's facing Ryan Spann.
Not going to be a champ.
He's not going to be a champ, who we have disparaged many times on this podcast. If Reyes can't get the job done here, you do worry for him. I do not worry for him. I think Reyes is going to school Spann here, take him out back, give him a good C2 in a physical sense, not a sexual sense, and really put him away. I think this is going to be the rebirth of Dominic Reyes for me. I think he's going to come back and have a statement victory over Spann here. Yeah,
but of course at this weight class, you know, even Ryan Spann, he has caught people. He can be a handful. It would be shocking, you know, if you put Reyes away, you know, with a freak punch early on. That would be a very bad omen for Reyes' dependence. Do you think Reyes has done his 30 minutes on the exercise bike leading up to this fight? It's a prime athlete, Joe. What did he tell us once? He's played in baseball. Yeah, could jog as well. Yeah. No, hopefully Reyes will be back. What's the fight that you're picking for us? I'm going to surprise you. I've picked... No, I'm not going to surprise you. I'm going to pick... No, I'm picking meatball. We'll talk about that in a moment. Otman Aitzata. Please not. Otman Aitzata versus Matt Frivola is the fight I've picked here. Aitzata is his first fight in 2 years in the UFC. After he got cut after a weird incident. He was one of those, he would never fight in the UFC again. It's Damon. Dana, we haven't seen him for a while, but Dana is still in charge of the UFC. Dana said he's cut from the UFC after he smuggled a bag into the fighter hotel on Yas Island during COVID. Yeah, broke protocol. Called him. What was in the bag, Joe? I am going to guess some weird. It's either something to do with performance enhancing drugs. Or shit that makes your nipples go hard. Yeah, or something else that makes your nipples go hard. Some weird sex toy of some variety. That's haram. Yeah, indeed. Listen, Aitzata, he's only had 2 fights in the UFC, both of which he's won by knockout. Do you remember the Timu Pakayalan fight where... Did he send his mouthpiece flying? In that one, no, he knocked him. He went stiff as a board, didn't he? And just went falling backwards. That was sick. That was a highlight. It was a performance of the night. And then Camel Worthy, no slouch himself. No, put him away in the first round as well, Joe. 2 first-round knockouts.
Yeah.
Now, look, Matt Pravola, he's coming in as the favourite, Joe. This is the top tip from Hold On, I'm Talking Brother. Get your £5 out.
Get your £5 out. Karma worthy. Otman Aizatar. We got to go knockout, haven't we? He's throwing big punches, swanging and banging. Aizatar by knockouts. Let's keep talking about these prelims just quickly. I'm going to pick another one that's going to surprise you.
Unlimited picks now.
Go on, there's some good stuff on here, man. Let's talk about the good fights.
There are.
We'll punt the new stuff. I'm not interested to talk about that. I'm going to talk about this one. Carlos Ulberg is opening up the early prelims against. Oh, I wish I hadn't picked this fight. Look at this guy's name. Nikolai Negu Mireno.
What did you say? Can't say that. Joe, come on, you can't say that. Now Ulberg, he has looked pretty good. He has looked pretty good in his last outings. Now Volkanovski was less emphatic about his faith in Ulberg to win than he was about the other guys. I will say that.
Okay.
He was very much talking about like renewed focus. He's taking it more seriously. He's in better shape, which implies that he wasn't that man. And if you weren't that man, do you become it and reach the elite? I'm not sure.
Well, I remember his debut in the UFC against Kennedy Nchukwu. Oh my god, the pronunciation, I'm really sorry. This is so bad. Where he was winning the fight and then just completely gassed and lost it and got knocked out in the second round. Came back with a very cagey win over Fabio Charant, and then before defeating Tafon Nchukwu by knockout in the first round in his last fight, getting that confidence back. It'd be interesting to see if Ulberg can continue along this route. But his opponent Nikolai, who I'm not going to attempt his surname again, they share an opponent in Nchukwu, in which he has a decision win over him. Please stop laughing at me. And he's got a 4-fight win streak here. 2 streaking light heavyweights here, probably on the edge of the light heavyweight rankings. Doesn't take much to get in there. I'll be interested to see that. Tom, go on, pick the other prelim fight we're excited for.
Well, we've been dancing around it, Joe. Oh my word. Oh, Lord. Here we go. It's Brad Riddell. Another city kickboxing stalwart, a man who's been dancing around the edge of the lightweight rankings, had a few disappointments of late, but not shamed himself, and he's fought a resurgent Renato Moicano in the headline prelim event. Great
Big
fight.
money Moicano. Can't wait to see him back. His last fight obviously was the loss to RDA, but he was starting to put it together before that. Fun prelim fighter, fun lightweight mixer-upper. Moicano. This is going to be a banger. Like, they're just going to absolutely swang and bang. And frankly, I wish this was on the main card. More so than probably Frankie Edgar Gutierrez and Hooker Poirier as well. This is going to be a stonker of a fight. Okay, Tom, let's just wrap this up here by asking this question. UFC at MSG, this is the 5th time they've come to Madison Square Garden now. What's like the memories that kind of stick out for this card? Because they've started to make this a sort of big time, big deal event. What's the main ones that stand out? And do you think this is a fair card to continue in that lineage?
Oh, because they're having such big events, very memorable. I mean, we already talked about, or did we? Perhaps we didn't talk about Conor McGregor's, big double belt achieving fight against Eddie Alvarez. With his signature performance for me.
That's the one. That's the one for me.
That's the one.
Can I also just say as well, that's not just the signature performance for him. That's the signature moment of the UFC, I think. It's their biggest star who put on his best performance, who then cut an incredible promo. I just want to take this moment to apologise to absolutely no one. Like, it's just incredible. He was on fire that week. There was also the incredible press conference where Alvarez was trying to talk trash, and McGregor just said, "These big Irish balls in your face," was all he said. If you remember that moment, it was just incredible. And also the rest of that card as well. You remember the Tyron Woodley Wonderboy fight that was on there? Yoel Romero beheading.
Money that fight.
Yes, Romero beheading Chris Weidman as well on that card.
Oh, that was the flying knee.
The flying knee.
Oh, my God.
Then I remember when he called out Bisping afterwards, and they were talking. He was talking trash to him, like from the cage up into the rafters, where Bisping then gave him the finger. And then also on the prelims, Khabib defeating Michael Johnson, and then as he was talking trash to him, I just think that is like that one fight, that one performance from McGregor is basically the pinnacle of the UFC, at least in terms of the modern era.
But other big events at MSG, I mean, we touched upon the fighters here who appeared at MSG last year. Gaethje and Chandler, hell of a fight. Obviously, a bit sad, but the Vera front kick knockout of Frankie Edgar.
For sure. We also then had, after the year after McGregor, you had UFC 217, which had the incredible 3 title fights in a row, starting off with Namajunas knocking out Jędrzejczyk, followed by Dillashaw versus Garbrandt, which is like a round and a half of carnage. And then the returning GSP winning the middleweight title of Michael Bisping. And that was a wonderful moment to see a great comeback, winning a belt in the second division, and looked really good in it as well. Like, if you remember the end of that GSP welterweight run, very defensive, focused on the wrestling. That Bisping fight just went out there and just went for it, and they had a tremendous scrap.
Yeah, I think those are the biggest fights to mention. Of course, that was the whole
Masvidal, Nate Diaz, BMF.
The BMF.
That hasn't aged well, is it?
No, it's not. The whole thing with The Rock, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it was TV. It was MSG. It was the big show.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping for a better event this weekend.
For sure. Right, we're going to go through our main card picks one more time. This time starting from the bottom, going up. Dan Hooker, Claudio Puelles. I picked Puelles by decision.
Yeah, but I picked Hooker for knockout.
Hooker by knockout, my word. Frankie Edgar versus Chris Gutierrez. Picked Gutierrez by knockout, whereas you
Gutierrez decision here.
Decision. And then the top 3 fights were matched here. Poirier versus Chandler. We both gone for Poirier by decision. Esparza versus Weili. Weili by knockout, TKO, however you want to put it. And then in the main event, Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. The trilogy, the grudge match for the middleweight title. We've both gone for Adesanya by decision. My word, Tom, I am hyped. At the start of this week, I was about a 5 or a 6 in terms of hype. But right now, I'm at a good 8 to 9. The fire is there in my belly. We're going to see some proper scraps, and I cannot wait. Listeners, thank you for joining us. Tom, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure, Joe. I'll be back for my crowning event next week.
Will you eck? And listeners, we'll be back next week, in which I will finally nail those pronunciations. Thank you so much, and good night.
Good night.